Justin Donald, called the Warren Buffett of Lifestyle Investing, is the #1 Wall Street Journal bestselling author of The Lifestyle Investor, the 10 Commandments of Cash Flow Investing for Passive Income and Financial Freedom. As founder of The Lifestyle Investor, he specializes in low-risk cash flow investing, simplifying complex financial strategies, and structuring deals. A seasoned investor and entrepreneur, Justin has served as a South by Southwest investor judge, shares wisdom on lifestyle investing as a member of the Kiplinger Advisor Collective, and has spoken at notable venues like Texas Ranger Stadium. Through his Lifestyle Investor Mastermind podcast and consulting program, Justin coaches entrepreneurs and executives to create wealth without creating a job.
I refuse to stay in a victim mentality. I gotta stand and fight for my honor and my family. That's how I did it, cause you know that's how it had to be. So now I'm slaying dragons and I do it happily. I told him I refuse to be another casualty. I looked inside the dragon's eyes and then I told him casually, hi, I'm a dragon slayer and I got a dragon lair. I'ma go and slay a dragon, then I'm gonna drag him there. I don't care, I ain't scared. Look inside my heart and there's a lion there. Conquering my dragons, I ain't fighting fair.
Justin, it's great to be with you. You know, this is like a blast from the past for both of us. Our lives took different journeys for the past, I don't know, more than a decade or so. And, you Google along and you see Justin Donald, this well-known, successful author who's gone, you always were successful, but gone on to even bigger things. And you say, my gosh, is that much time passed since we spoke? And then getting a chance to catch up a little bit, knowing this would be a great opportunity to have you on the show, because this show, Duran On Demand, is about giants and leading giants. And you are a giant leading giants, so you're the perfect candidate for this. And you're a person that I've known for many years and I trust. And because of that, I want people to know that you're more than just a guest on the show, but you're somebody that I'm going to refer people to if they do want to dive in and learn how to make more money, but to do it the right way. I mean, to do it in a passive way where you're not sacrificing your life and your family, but you're actually increasing that. So tell us, what's left out of your introduction, JD, that you want to share with people? Did you know that Leading Giants has over 120 micro-learning modules from 4 to 19 minutes on entrepreneurship, communication, anything to maximize your influence? We are here to help you build the life of your dreams by maximizing your influence, growing a company, leading people at levels you've never led before. If you're in sales, having a greater opportunity for increased closing percentages and larger activity than you've ever had before. It's time now for you to jump in and join Leading Giants. All you have to do is press that button right down there. In order to access this, share with your friends, become a giant. We'll go slay some dragons.
First of all, thanks for the kind words. I think what I would love to share with your audience is that you were one of my early mentors. And so I think it's appropriate that your audience know, and you still made it through. Somehow I did. Yeah, you were, slaying dragons and, developing giants way back before it was ever your tagline and really like the foundation of your current business, which is really cool. But I just have such fond memories from those days, from a time where, I was looking for a role model. I was looking for leadership. I was looking to learn. So yeah, I think it'd be really, I'd feel remiss if we didn't share that aspect of life, that we got a chance to work together for a number of years.
Yeah, it was a pleasure because you made me look good. And so I always liked working with you. When you've got a star performer like that, it's easy. So, what was really cool too is you were very industrious. And I recognize this about you, because I would have met you when you were probably just right out of college, I think. Yeah. And you're a single guy. Now you're married. You've got a family. You're, so well established in so many different regards. But one of the things about you is you were always industrious. And I remember watching you do presentations and just recognizing that you had like a spirit of being able to motivate people and that you were always on path for growing. This was just something that was essential for you. You weren't going to stay in the same place for a long time. And I watched you grow pretty much in every way. You say, I'm going to take care of myself physically. I'm going to build my relationships, my family, watch you grow in your faith, all of these different types of things. And of course, clearly finances. And you did it in a way that, you were able to have the whole person grow. And I think that's one of the reasons that people are so attracted to you, because there's a lot of people that trade time for money and investments, and you have it classically. I mean, if somebody said Justin Donald wrote a book, what would you title it? I couldn't have come up with something as good as the title, but I would have said it was something around the idea of not just building wealth, but lifestyle too. So tell us about what got you started in this, how you got to where you are now. And then I have a couple of specific questions about that path and journey.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. I think just by nature, I'm very curious. I like to learn. I feel like, when I need to be back as an amateur in something in life, because I feel like I always need to be learning and growing. So when I feel like I have captured the essence of something, I don't know if it's necessarily achieving mastery, but at least hitting a certain level of expertise and success, I want to pivot to something else. I want to be new. I want to have challenge in my life again, from a business standpoint or from, I guess, growth or achievement standpoint. So that's really important to me. And when I think about what to me is most important and what to me is kind of like the foundation of it all is that I found myself coaching people a lot, and I found myself coaching people with a lot of money, very successful on paper, but I was coaching them on how to live a great life today, like how to actually spend that money and not be so frugal with it, and how to create life experiences for yourself, for your family, your kids, your spouse, your parents, important people in your life, close friends. And I just realized that for most people, they're not doing that. And you think that successful people are, you think that wealthy people are. I think the majority are not. I think most people have been conditioned to achieve more, to move up the corporate ladder, to buy the next thing, to achieve or attain the next level of status. And culturally, we're rewarded for that. And I think that kind of strips away the beauty, the humanity, and like living a life on purpose, not a reactionary life. I think most people find themselves kind of like chained in a sense to their job, to their business. A lot of people say, hey, I'm a business owner, when really their business owns them. And I'm guilty of this. I've been there before. Or maybe it's even a level of success where it's like, hey, I own all this stuff, but really the stuff owns them, and buying more things to keep up, or, having the big payments to cover all the things, the jet, the yacht.
Oh, we saw that years ago, didn't we? I mean, I watched a lot of people just like overstep because they wanted to have this image. Do you remember this saying? I don't know if I don't want to put you on the spot here, but there was a guy in our life who used to say that money is only good for the good that it does. Do you remember who that was?
I don't remember who it was.
By the way, Marty. Yeah, it was. It was Marty Dimitrich. So even though you didn't remember exactly those words, you knew that was basically his essence, and he would have said that.
Yep.
And you can tell that you were shaped by that sort of thing. I'm unsurprised that your path here in this, as much as it's centered around the idea of building wealth, you really didn't talk much about that. You really, in essence, said money's only good for the good that it does. That's really kind of a summary point of what you had there. And, when I think about this, you are where you are now because of all the things that you learned, probably from great mentors, as well as the idea that you just kind of forged and made mistakes on your own, which you weren't afraid to do. I always saw that you kind of had that courageous thing about you. But if you were to go back and say, if I would have known then what I know now, and the today Justin could go back and talk to the 20 years younger Justin, what would the today Justin say to that 20-year younger Justin to speed that process of success up?
It's interesting. I feel like I did a good job of living life every year of my life. So, in a lot of the people that I coach, a lot of the people that are in, my Lifestyle Investor Mastermind community, it's trying to get them to live a present life, a focused life, an intentional, purposeful life that is really inspiring to them. I feel like early on, I figured that out, and I'm lucky that I had good role models. I'm lucky that I had good mentors, and that these things I was just passionate about. But I also feel like I got a late start to a certain degree on the whole, buying assets type of mindset, that I had limiting beliefs around what it would take to buy assets. For real estate, I wanted to buy my first piece of property years before I actually bought it. And I had this limiting belief that you had to have the money in order to buy it, when the reality is, and I know this today, that if it's a good deal, the money is the easiest part. But back then I didn't have the money. So that was the hardest part.
Yeah.
And I think just this whole idea that if you want to create wealth, and by the way, for me, wealth is a natural byproduct of doing other things, living intentionally, figuring out what, creates passion and fulfillment in your life. Because there are ways that you measure wealth, not just financially, but I think it's, the financial part of it's a nice byproduct of, doing these things today. But the whole idea that buying assets, even if you don't know which ones are the right ones, if you find assets at a good price, they're going to appreciate. We're going to continue printing money. As money is printed, we expand the supply of money, the value of these assets expands. And so the earlier I could have started on that, I think the better.
Yeah.
I wish I would have gotten 3 or 4 more years and pulled the trigger early when I wanted to, when I knew that I should, but I had a little fear and uncertainty and limiting beliefs around it that delayed that part of my life.
So unpeel that a little bit. So, people are saying to themselves, okay, what did you just say? Okay. Because right now they're saying, I think I need the money for that. And you just told me that you don't. How do you do that? And what was the trigger point for you? What was the first experience you had that allowed you to make that kind of courageous move and open up your eyes?
Well, I waited until I had the money, my own money, to pay for 100% of at least the down payment. And I used leverage for the rest of it. So I had enough for my 20%, or actually my first deal was 15% because it was seller financed. So I only had to do a 15% down payment. But previously, I had these really great properties that I figured out I could buy. When I didn't have the money, what I should have done is just reached out to people that I knew, had some money to invest, or just reached out to people that maybe I didn't know anyone who would invest, but maybe they did. Mm-hmm. Just bottom line, try to raise the money and not feel like I have to have all the equity. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel like, hey, I want to keep everything to myself, but that's a very limited mindset. That's scarce around, the amount of equity that you have or that you give up. And I think every day, any day, I would rather have a smaller piece of a bigger pie than a bigger piece of a smaller pie.
Oh, that parallels leadership too. There's a lot of people that feel like they have to own everything in an organization. And by the way, sometimes just by way of personality, that person might be a little bit better off. But I have found that although I've owned 100% of many of my companies, having partnerships is a great thing. Personally, this is one man's opinion. This isn't a program, but I love a 3-person partnership. One of the reasons that I love it is because you can't run roughshod. You actually have to use influence, diplomacy, and good ideas to get things done because you can be outvoted. And in a 50 partnership, you can get into gridlock and stuff like that. That's just a little food for thought for people. But you're kind of saying the same sort of thing when it comes to a financial thing. But you've also invested in a lot of businesses too, not just into real estate, but you're able to say, hey, this is a good franchise to buy. What are the formulas or ideas that you use there?
Yeah, so my goal is, Dave, I want to de-risk everything as much as I can, especially at the beginning, especially when I don't have the passive income to cover my life. So foundation one, I think most people I think are misinformed or misadvised as to how to invest. And most people focus on, this net worth thing and majority of assets either in your business or in the stock market. And I just think there's huge risk, concentration risk in that. So for me, it wasn't about trying to accumulate a net worth. It was trying to increase my passive income to a point that it covered or, more than exceeded my lifestyle. And what happens in that instance is I've got real utility on these dollars. If I have money sitting in the stock market, generally I don't have real utility on it. That doesn't mean I don't believe in the stock market. I still think, if you follow the family offices who manage money for the wealthiest people in the world, they generally have 15 to 25%, maybe up to 30% of the wealthiest family's net worth in the stock market. So it's not that I'm anti-stock market. I'm anti-majority of your assets in any single investment vehicle or a single niche or sector, right? And so to me, if I can get the cash flow going, it opens up the playbook to so much more opportunity. If I can cover my survival income first, You know, that doesn't mean I'm doing fancy trips or eating out all the time, but survival's like covering my mortgage, my utilities, my car payments, bare necessity groceries. Once you get there, it's like a weight lifted off of your shoulders. And then when you get to lifestyle income, it's just incredible. So working over here on the passive income it's creating the byproduct of it is it's increasing my net worth, but I'm doing so with utility today, not utility when I'm retired.
Yeah. So I think because a lot of the audience that we have, they're entrepreneurs, and or what they are is they're a person who finds themselves in a situation where they're 32 years old now. They've got 2 kids. They're seeing growing expenses. They're starting to do the math, and they're realizing that where they're headed is not going to work, and they've got to do something more, but they don't know how to bridge that gap. They don't know how to you know, how do I do this? I'm stuck right now, and I know that I have to go from here to there, but I can't, because I can't let go of this income because I've got to pay the bills. I don't know how I should start this organization. What advice do you have to that person who finds themselves at this kind of tipping point, who needs to make a change? I mean, other than, as I always say, sitting around at 1 o'clock in the morning with a beer and potato chips watching Shark Tank saying that was my idea. What do you suggest?
Yeah, that the latter isn't going to work. But what I would say is some businesses can really start as a side hustle, and I think it's worth considering that. The greatest risk, though, is in a startup. So is there a business that you can buy? And the danger on a business that you can buy is, are you buying another job? Can you buy a business that has an operator, or you know someone that you can plug in as an operator? So that way you're not buying a job, you are buying an asset that is independent of your time, right? The goal here is divorce time from money. How do we create a system or a business, something, you know, an asset that produces income that's totally independent of time? And so that can come in the form of a business. For me, it started in real estate, and there are pros and cons to everything. So real estate, I liked it because I knew that if I bought right, the risk was really low that I would lose money. But I'm also kind of capped a little bit on the ceiling. It's not like these can go meteoric, you know, in a number of years. I mean, there's only so much you're going to grow real estate portfolio every year. You know, on the flip side of that, there are companies, you can start them super high risk. You can buy one based on, you know, EBITDA or whatever, you know, I guess profit marker you want to use, whatever method, you know, free cash flow, whatever financial number makes sense for you to value a business on. So, you know, the concept works, you know that they have customers, and then you can buy it based on a multiple of some, you know, profit formula. And that one, in all likelihood, you can calculate how long it's going to take to make your money back and reduce your exposure. But, you know, it's a little bit higher risk. Like, we don't know what happens with the economy. We don't know what happens with the industry or with the person that's running it. You know, there is risk there. But if you buy a safer one that's like home services, or, you know, just things that are more recession proof, your meteoric sky is the limit is much more possible with a more protected downside. So again, pros and cons to each, but I've done it all. I've done real estate. I've bought businesses. I've started businesses. I mean, I can tell you from starting businesses, that's the most work.
Oh, yeah.
And the most risk. And if there's a way to hack that system and buy something profitable, and right now you've got, you know, baby boomers that are all trying to retire. This is a great time to be buying businesses, buying assets from people that, you know, just kind of want out of the game.
Not to mention, literally, like, specifically right now is a good time to do it too, because you can pay a lower multiple. And
That's
you're
right.
getting a natural gain when the market turns around and all sorts of buying is taking place when money is a little cheaper.
100%.
Hey there, Giant. Dave Duran here, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our brand new e-newsletter where you will get the best of the best tips and insights to unlock the giant in you, build an empire, and slay some dragons. Sign up below. Let's go slay some dragons.
A couple of things that are interesting here. A lot of people stop with what you said, and they say, okay, so this is about making calculations. Here's what I've seen, and I'd just like your take on it. That the person's virtue and vice are the thing that get in the way of this most. if they don't have courage, they don't have prudential judgment, they don't understand justice, they don't have fortitude, they don't have temperance, they have too much pride, not enough humility, they're going to not know what to buy because they're buying it based on whether or not they can run it. They're not going to know how to start a side hustle because they're totally afraid to delegate because nobody does it quite like them. They are a fearful person, so they're not willing to part with something because they are skeptical of every person out there that's everyone's going to try to screw them, you know? How much of that would you say, especially because I know your history a little bit more and how you helped people not only just know things and do things, but you helped them become someone. What's your take on that?
Well, I think a lot of this stems from like a fundamental mindset. We'll call it shift or lack of. I mean, there's a place that most people live that, you know, is very scarce. It's very minimally. It's like a minimal thinking of I need everything. I can't delegate anything out. You know, if I spend money or invest money to do this thing and it fails, then I'm never going to get that money back. It's such a limiting way to live life. And I do think most people live in that space. And I think that it is also possible to shift to, you know, another place of like, well, you know, money, we don't have to covet money that way. Money is just a tool. It's just a medium of exchange. And it's okay if I lose something because if I learn the lessons, I'll be better the next time. I'll get a better return. You know, the next time I invest money. I think sometimes people are so afraid to lose, so afraid to make mistakes, so afraid to take a chance that they just stay doing the same thing. They don't grow. They end up hating what they do or where they are in life or you know, their job, their business. And I think it can be avoided by, you know, trying to get outside of that comfort zone, trying to do something a little different, trying to add or create some growth in our lives. And I do think it's important that we get out of the routine of what is normal because that is where growth and excitement live.
Yeah, it's a zero-sum game to a lot of people. It's like, I'm going to make this one major investment and it has to go well. And it didn't. And because it didn't, you just don't do that. It's like the accountant trying to counsel somebody in opening a small business. They're generally going to say no because the accountants see all the businesses that fail. And they've got the wrong perspective, the wrong look at it. All right, so here's a big question. I'm going to be an avatar right now, okay? I am the 32-year-old guy. My name is Matt. I have 2 young kids. I am stuck. I went to school to become an engineer because I heard engineers make a lot of money. I am okay with engineering, but I'm not passionately in love with it. And I see college coming and I'm not going to be able to pay for it. And if I do, I don't know how I'm going to retire. I really don't have assets. I own my home, but barely anything on it. And I bought it at the peak of the market and it's down 10% right now. I'm stuck, Justin Donald. Save me. What are steps 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, this is a common theme. It's a common story. So this avatar is absolutely perfect. You know, I think first and foremost, it's are you educating yourself with strategies, with opportunities, are you feeding yourself information that can help solve the problem, right? Are you willing to take the time to learn? And that can be a book, a podcast. I'm a big fan of courses or conferences because there's an immersion aspect to it. And I think that people learn really well through that immersion, but realistically, it's all of them. It's all the above. It's carving out the time and making the space for all of them. Number 2 is it's evaluating who do you spend the most time with? And are these people that you are trying to pull up or that they're potentially pulling you down? Or are these people that are really lifting you up and inspiring you to the next level? And I think it's okay to have great friends, but to recognize, hey, are these people bringing me up to the next level or are they lowering me? You know, am I, you know, not getting confidence? Am I actually, you know, do they not want me to move to the next level or trajectory in business or wealth or whatever it is, you know, physical health? And so I do think peer group really matters. And I think finding people that are doing those things, having those conversations, having the success in whatever category of life it is, whatever, umbrella of wealth, whatever one it is, whether it be health, whether it be financial, whether it be business, whether it be, whatever, finding those people And ideally, Jim Rohn says that you're the sum of the five people. You're the average of the sum of the five people that you hang out with, right? Mm-hmm. And then the third is finding a mentor that you're willing to pay to get good, but they need to have done the thing that you want to do. Whatever the thing is, they need to have fundamental experience and then have risen to, the heights that you want to get to. So like, to me, it's those three things. And then it's number 4 is take action. And it's probably less about exactly what it is. That's the right thing. Like, don't get stuck because of indecisiveness on what asset class, what business, what. I think you just move forward. You pick something through your due diligence of finding out what are the good options, what works. You might have 5 options, you might have 1 option, but you figure out something that works. You be a copycat to whatever the thing is, whoever, has it, whatever the blueprint is, and you just move. You take action and you move towards it one step at a time.
But Justin, I don't have any of those assets, and I don't know people who make money, and I don't understand, what about woe is me? I mean, I'm not like everybody you work with that's naturally inclined for wealth. What do you say to that guy?
Well, I just say that's my story because I didn't know any of these people. I grew up in a very, lower middle class area with parents that, my dad sold cars or appliances my whole childhood, or he fixed appliances. And then my mom worked at the church as a secretary. So neither of my parents made much money. People in our friend group and network did not do the things that I wanted to do, that I aspired to do, that I wanted to learn about. And so today I feel like it's easier to get access to those people and that information than ever before. I mean, I remember going to the library to check out books. Well, now you can just download a book. You can just download a podcast. Like, it's so much easier. But I think if we're not taking ownership that that what we do, the choices we make matter, it's going to be really hard. But if we carve out time and treat it just like we did a course at school, and it's like, hey, I went to school, Tuesdays and Thursdays for, an hour in this class. Like, it doesn't have to be a ton of time. Maybe it's an hour twice a week, or it's an hour once a week. But to commit that time somewhere, wherever it is, to learning and growth, you'll eventually get the confidence. And if you don't quite have it, you get around people that can help you, and you just move forward. Sometimes the doors don't open until you take those steps.
Yeah. I think what happens for a lot of people is they get stuck in a place where now they just identify as that. They're basically, I'm not wealthy. That's the other people. This is my grind. I've got to be stuck in it. And there's got to be something that just shakes them out of that says, either the pain is so great, the desperation is so great that I have to make the move, or they really, it's almost always about their character in some way, shape, or form. And by the way, that is not to say that some people don't choose and want a very simple life, and they don't really need or care to have much wealth. Thank God many people in the world are like that. I'm not talking about that person. I'm talking about the person who puts themselves through self-torture saying, I need and want this wealth for whatever family circumstance I have, but I'm literally unwilling to perfect myself through the process. And that's, I think, a huge challenge for people. So what would you say to somebody that tried something and failed, and now they're stung and they don't want to do anything more? Is there anything that you kind of learned to help people get out of this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you try to do it, it doesn't work out. It ends up being, a bad decision. Or
do you have any failures like that you?
Oh yeah, you bet.
Share one.
The first piece of real estate I bought, I didn't ever think that market timing mattered. I remember my parents, the very first property I ever bought was a condo in Chicago. And I remember my parents were like, hey, are you sure you should be buying something that is like more expensive than our home? We saved up for a long time to buy this home. Are you sure right out of college you should be doing that? And it's like, oh yeah, Mom, Dad, I'm good. You have no clue. You don't get it. I've got this. When in reality, I should have listened to them a little bit more because I bought at a peak in the market right before the financial crisis. I got stuck in a situation where my unit. So I didn't do, it was a rehab of an old building. So a new build in this building, but I just didn't go through the steps of making sure everything was done right. And there was some roof flooding issues, and I was on the top unit, and there was some other issues. And then I got promoted in my job at that time and had to move out of state. So literally bought it 3 months later, moved from Chicago to St. Louis. And so then I was trying to rent it, but I rented it. There was no way I could cover the mortgage. So I had negative cash flow, but if I sold it, I'd be taking it for a loss. My business struggled. I borrowed against a line of credit. I maxed out that line of credit. So it was almost like the situation couldn't get any worse. And then finally, I was like, I just have to sell. So I sold this unit because it took up too much like headspace.
Yeah,
it's just too much mental drain on me. And so it's the only time in my career that I showed up at the closing table and I was totally upside down. So I sold my business, but I had to show up, I think, with like $160,000 or $170,000, and it was brutal. And it took me a while to like save up to have that money.
Yeah, and that's the type of thing that for many people just takes them out of the game.
Yeah.
They say, you can't make money in real estate. I'm out. I'm done. And they don't go back. So I think it's good for them to hear that story because that's frankly, that's pretty brutal. I mean, that's this is the lifestyle investment guy who just talked about getting his butt kicked in a particular circumstance. But frankly speaking, I think it's probably one of the reasons that you became who you are in doing what you're doing. And you kind of addressed that early on, that you have these mistakes that you go through and they just shape who you are when you move forward. So let me ask you this question. You own companies, you find good companies to buy, whether it's a franchise or it's a SMB or something like that. You're buying them either on available cash flow, you're buying them in EBITDA, you're doing something like that. You don't want to run them. Warren Buffett, this is how he did make his money. He didn't run around buying companies that needed massive operational transformation. He bought them because he liked the people there and he said, go, keep doing it. This is what you're doing. And what advice do you have for people when they're trying to identify something like this? How do you know that leadership team is the right one? How do you know they're not going to bail on you and now you're just stuck holding the bag? What's your formula for that?
It's interesting. When I think about the mistake I made on real estate is I tried to do my own thing without paying attention to the other clues that other people leave behind. And the moment I shifted from doing my own thing to following someone else's blueprint, everything changed because I don't know that I'm smart enough in the way where I'm going to figure all this stuff out, but I'm pretty smart in recognizing that someone else has done it. And if they can do it, I believe I can do it if I have the same playbook. And so it's figuring out who those people are and then, figure out businesses. So learning that skill set and then finding those businesses that do it. So, from a tactical standpoint, part of it is, hey, I think this team's good. I can use personality assessments to figure out, are they in the right seats at least? Some of these behavioral assessments will let you know that they kind of have their bandwidth for what it takes to figure something out is pretty large or it's short. So you kind of have an idea, are they going to make it? And I think hiring to some of these roles based on formulas that, some of these assessment companies have, they've kind of figured a lot of it out. And then realizing that you're probably never going to get it all right. So I've bought companies, I bought them in full or I bought pieces of them where I've been maybe a minority equity holder or a majority equity holder, or I just buy the whole company. And we've had instances where the teams have worked out great. And we've had instances where the teams were a total train wreck. We had an instance where we bought a company and everyone on the team quit. Yeah. So that was problematic and we did not foresee that. But we also recognize that there's a solution to everything. And it was interesting because we brought in people, we're like, there's no way we're going to be able to, the company just went off a cliff when we lost everyone. We're like, we're never going to be able to replace that type of team. And then the next people that we got in ended up being even better and we outperformed what that last company did. So it's really funny how it works. And you just have to be willing to pivot and talk to people that have been in that situation before get some advice, try and copy people that have been there, have done that. So that way you can do it without making the mistakes, but inevitably you're going to make mistakes. And I also think that for me, at least, and I think for most people, but most certainly for me, I learn the best with mistakes. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish I learned so well when everything goes well, but I don't. I learn because it didn't work, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I have to figure this out. Otherwise, this business is going to implode. And that's really where I have been able to learn and grow the most.
Yeah, I mean, necessity is the mother of invention. They say that. So what I find interesting, too, about this is that you have this paradox in your message. And if a person is listening the wrong way, they're hearing it as a contradiction when it is not. These two ideas work so harmoniously together, but they are seemingly contradictory. And that is that you help investors really reduce risk. I mean, you're like, listen, if we're going to do this sort of thing, we're going to do every single thing we can to not lose money. Yet, at the same time, you're fully aware that it can happen. But I think what separates you from a lot of people that don't do this is you just say, if that time comes, we're going to solve it. You know, we're going to solve it. And then it's going to be better when we do that. And if it's not, we're going to learn something and we're going to go do something more later on. And I think that's a big deal. Okay, so here's one. I'm still the avatar of before. And, oh man, my wife is just afraid of the risk. And I don't know if I can do that to my kids. How do I find something that I can do that allows me to taste the opportunity for making some sort of a move, but doesn't put everyone in danger? What are your thoughts on that? Because this is
that avatar is my wife. And so where I probably would have just want to like cut things and move on and, go, 2 feet into something, just dive right in. I also recognize that there's just a beauty in the security or the safety in that's, if your spouse has this, if this is important to them, where life doesn't change. It's not like we're taking so many risks that all of a sudden the money stops. Yeah. And so for us, we just really did it by buying one property at a time. We bought a property at a price that we knew it would be really hard to lose money on long term. Like even if things didn't work, we could sell it for at least what we paid, but probably more than what we paid. So that felt really good. We did, the first deal we ever did was a seller finance note. So I didn't even have to get lending. He carried the note. It was non-recourse. So if it didn't work, he couldn't come after me for any of my assets, right? He could only take that property back. So I guess my total risk was the down payment that I put down. But I also figured out that it wouldn't take me that long to make that down payment back. So, depending on the cash on cash return, and for me, in that first deal, my cash on cash return was over 50%. I think it was 54%. So in 2 years, I had my down payment back. And that's because I bought it so under market. And I bought it, at a good interest rate with the seller finance note. So my wife felt really good, even though she was nervous, even though she thought I was crazy. And all the time she's like, are you sure we should do this? Like, is this a good move? Is this us being wise with our finances? Are we being good stewards of this money that we've been entrusted with? We decided that would work, because if it didn't, it wouldn't. Like, we wouldn't be in financial turmoil if it didn't work. But if it did work, we could just take another bite out of that apple. We could just, take another page out of that playbook and do it again. And that's what we did. It was just a rinse and repeat. We bought one, we bought another one. The next year we bought another one, so on and so forth. And basically, over the last, 15 years, we bought, on average, one or more pieces of real estate a year.
Yeah, I mean, that answer is an answer that I think to some people from the outside would sound shocking, because what they're doing is they're looking at where you have come now, what you have, what you own, the assets you have. And you think, man, this guy's just going to jump in. He's going to risk everything. He's going to scare everyone in his life. And he's just going to make this big, bold move. And no, your answer was completely different. You were like, no, you know what? We're not going to put the family at great risk. And you actually just told the audience that you can actually do both of those things. You can keep the security that is necessary and take only amount of risk that makes sense for all those people involved. And then you now know more, you have more. So even if you're taking an equal amount of proportionate risk, the actual bite you're taking is much, much more massive. and now you slowly accumulate things. I think that's the other thing too, is that you are communicating that you can get things done now, but you have to think long-term. And I hear both of those things in what you're making reference to. So for you, how long do you generally want to flip an asset? I mean, if you were a private equity firm, how long is your fund as a metaphor?
Yeah. So I went into an asset class starting with mobile home parks that my whole goal was to find them cash flowing day one. So again, way less risk. This thing makes money the moment I buy it, in which case I actually don't have to sell it. So to this day, I have only sold one mobile home park that I've ever purchased. And that one I used because I could double up. So I sold that and I bought two more. And so other than that, we've bought and held. So our plan is, hey, if someone makes us a crazy offer, which by the way happened in 2022, we had a crazy offer and we almost pulled the trigger to sell. But we ended up not, because it's hard to just give up the cash flow. Once you create a system that works where you buy income producing assets and you become accustomed to the flexibility and the freedom that affords you, it's hard to give it up. So for me, I like to buy and hold, and I like to be in a position where I never have to sell, because then interest rates don't matter. There's nothing that squeezes me or forces me at any point, as long as my financing is done right, where it's, long-term debt. There's nothing that forces me to sell at a bad time. So I like that.
How do you manage the increased responsibility that you have when you own all of these assets which require management?
So early on, I did a lot of it. My whole goal is anytime I am buying something, anytime I'm doing something, I should be doing it first, because I need to know how to delegate that out to someone else. Even if it's short term that I do it, I need to be able to delegate it out. I need to make sure people aren't taking advantage of me, because I know kind of what's going on. I understand the business. And then the goal is, how quickly can I get someone else in there to do the work? Who can I pay, and pay well, that this becomes a great opportunity for them and their family? I spent some time with Richard Branson, a year, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And Richard owns over 500 companies. And so my big question to him is how do you do that? How do you scale? How do you own that many companies with the vast majority of them thriving and doing really well? And his advice, which this is some of the best advice that I've ever gotten from someone in the business game, he said, the goal is to hire incredibly smart people and do so as soon as you can, and then get out of the building. Yeah. Don't be a bottleneck to anything. Don't get in the way. Just let them do their job. And Warren Buffett does the same thing. And so
so does Elon. I mean, this is that's the formula. I think a lot of people, they say one or two things. They say, they buy the asset, they manage it, and they say, nobody can do it like me, which is completely false. Or what they say is, I hate doing this. How can I ask somebody else to do something that I want to do? And first of all, there's always somebody who can do it better. And second of all, there's going to be somebody who loves the idea, who really wants that job. I've never seen anything like that. I mean, for me, I would be the world's worst doctor. I mean, if a patient came in and they were like, hey, check this out, I'd be like, oh man, bad news, you're going to die. I mean, I would never want that job. But yet there are doctors who love that job. And there's always something that somebody else is going to like. So that's something that you've obviously done really well. And I can actually see that from, knowing you decades ago, how that was something that you had already effectively done, even at a young age, beyond your years. So here's two questions. Do you have a moment where it all just hit the fan and you had to recover in a way that you just didn't even know? You kind of explained the idea those people all quit one of the companies you bought. That might be one. But is there anything else that to you, kind of stands out where in retrospect, even though it might not have felt like it at the time, it ended up being a pretty heroic save?
Yeah, there are a number of those scenarios. There are several on the entrepreneurial front. There are several on the investing front. I mean, one of the stories that I shared in my book, The Lifestyle Investor, is the story of when I lost almost $1 million. And this was on an investment in a company that I used too much emotion to make the decision. It was such a good story. It felt good. The return was a really sexy return. So like the passive income that it generated was incredible. There were so many warning signs. I even remember I had my attorney review it. My attorney's like, I don't like this deal at all. And he specifically said, whoever their legal is horrible. Like just the way that it's formatted, just their agreement. He's like, there's red flags. And there were other things that he pointed out. And I'm like, no, you're just being too conservative. And so I went for it. And that deal, it ended up. So my attorney literally said, there's a good chance this could be a Ponzi scheme. And I was like, no way. Absolutely no way. Turns out, and by the way, I had friends that had invested in this company, had been earning payments for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, never missing a month of distributions ever. And so I was like, you're wrong. So anyway, I invested in this company. Sure enough, turns out to be a Ponzi scheme, and lost all that money that I put into it. The single greatest loss I have had yet. And a fascinating story. So there's so much learning and so much growth in it that it caused me to create a set of rules or my investment criteria of what I look for in a deal. So I sharpened my investment criteria up, which makes it so I can make decisions based on facts, not emotions, right? It's my checklist. But then I also made Murphy's Law for the lifestyle investor. It's like all these rules that came about. If it sounds, if it looks too good to be true, then it is, just a bunch of things like that have really saved me in the future from making some other poor choices. And the interesting thing with that deal is it came full circle this past summer. So I had taken copious notes and I had, recorded a number of things. I had really done a good job of documenting everything in this process. And so I got called as a lead witness in a case. The founder was federally indicted, and wow, I had to work with and it's funny because now I can actually talk about it for 3 years, 4 years, 3.5 years. I wasn't able to say a word about it, but I was able to share the things that I had learned and figured out and what they had told me and documents that they had shared with me and video conferences and whatnot. And so they were formally charged. And because of some issues with the insurance companies, maybe not doing their homework, there was actually a return of capital to the investors. And we're still in the process of sorting that out. But so the loss ends up not being as big of a loss, but it was still and is still my biggest loss yet. But also, I've learned more from that deal, that situation, than anything else I've ever been involved in on an investment front.
Yeah. And I think the thing is for you, just keep swinging back. If you're going to be a boxer and you're complaining because somebody's trying to hit you, you shouldn't get in the ring. And if you're going to make investments and complain because some of them didn't go the way you wanted to, when you think about it, Richard Branson, you used his example, 500 companies. There are very few people on planet Earth who are better investors than him. Yet he's got quite a few, just by way of raw numbers, not percentage-wise, of those 500 companies that are probably losing money and not going well. And you would look at Richard Branson and say, well, you're a bad investor because look at this number of your companies that isn't doing well. He's like, hey, that's a part of the formula here. And, some of them are going to just drift off. Others are going to recover. And some of those that are doing well are going to go down. It's just a part of it. It's kind of accepting that there's a certain amount of collateral damage that happens, even though we don't passively say, oh, well, but it's a part of it. And I think it makes it easier to not feel like you have to be like 100% perfect in what you're doing. I've noticed this about you and your approach and what you're doing now. It's no shock. We haven't really had that much time to catch up. I think we talked 1 or 2 times in the past decade, but this in front of an audience here is our longest and most in-depth conversation in some time. But I'm unsurprised by how you don't come into this with some sort of an ego. You're coming into this saying, hey, I want to share with you this mistake. I want to share with you what worked. I mean, humility is precision truth about yourself. So it's not being afraid of saying, I killed it here and I was killed here. And you're doing that. And I commend you for it. It's pretty awesome. So, in the last few minutes here, I've guided and directed the conversation with questions. If you were asking the questions of yourself, what do people need to hear about what you can offer?
Well, I think for most people, it's figuring out how to take the next step. So in my podcast, The Lifestyle Investor, the question I ask at the end of every session is, what's one step you can take today towards, really creating and investing in your financial future and creating financial freedom and a life by design, not a life by default. Most people live this reactionary life, and it's like putting out this fire, going this, solving this problem. It's basically just a true autopilot default life. And my goal is to help people shift it to a life by design with proactivity, with thought, on the front to say, hey, this is what I want life to look like. So, for me, I just really want to help people get to a place of abundance in all areas of life. And for most people, they really need to solve the financial equation to really feel like they can pivot to something else that they'd be more fulfilled doing, or, have the financial flexibility to feel like they can invest in or purchase this thing or add this to, their family toys or whatever it is. So that to me is the biggest thing, is like, what's the next step? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's like self-agency. It's to finally just stop being seaweed thrown back and forth in the waters, and to take control of what's taking place. It's really, really great advice. Justin, it's been awesome reconnecting with you and getting so many great tips. I can tell you right now, the audience is going to absolutely soak this up, and I really would encourage them to contact you how and where in order to tap into maybe your masterclass and some other things.
Yeah, if you go to lifestyleinvestor.com, that has everything. So we've got an online course, of course, my book, podcast, but we have masterclasses for mobile home park investing, for passive income. We literally just yesterday released our brand new tax masterclass and tax strategy. It's really awesome. So there are tons of products. We've got a mastermind that is by application and currently waitlist right now. But, a number of different products for anyone in your audience that's interested in figuring out what that next step is. You can do a consultation call with someone in our community. So we've got people on our team that if you go to lifestyleinvestor.com/consultation, you can get a free call with someone that can kind of guide you on what a next step may look like for you, what would be good for you based on your family dynamics, your life situation, your business, your wealth, all those things.
Yeah, that's great, Justin. Really appreciate it. Nico, do we have anything else to wrap up with, or are we all set?
We're all set. Thank you, Dave.
All right, let's go be giants and slay some dragons. Hey there, Giant. Thanks for watching Durand On Demand. I need your help with something. The world desperately needs more giants. You know it, and I know it. We've been around a lot of people struggling, figuring out how to make things go. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this with as many people as you can. We're going to build this audience, and we're going to help people slay dragons together.